Attention, please. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
At the same time, there are some foxes out there, and one of the great foxes is Roger Decoster. Roger won the World Championship 5 times.
If I'm having a bad day, he tries to find out what's bothering me, if it's problems at home or if it's problems with the bike. He's just a good manager, and he knows what it takes to win races, and I'm glad he's on our team.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for that, Rod. Thanks for the memories.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. 5 times world champion, 500cc world champion, 6 times motocross Des Nations champion, Roger Decoster. What can I say? Thank you so much for giving up your time on a Sunday morning.
You're welcome.
So, I don't know whether I could sit and watch you ride a bike all day instead of talking, but a lot of people want to know what goes on in Roger Decoster's mind. So, when it all started out for you, Roger, you used to like go and watch some guys on 4-strokes, etc., and it sort of turned full circle.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I got interested in bikes because there was a trials once a year in our neighborhood, and there was also at that time they had on-road endurance races like 500k, 12 hours, 24 hours, some of them, and there was a pub next door that was used as a checkpoint. And when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, when those events happened, I was up on the window all night to watch the bikes go by and listen to the sound of the bikes and all that. That was what sparked my interest.
What was your first bike, Roger?
My first bike, I actually had a little Excelsior for a brief time that I rode in the woods, and friends in my neighborhood had big English bikes, Triumphs and BSAs and Nortons and street bikes, and I would hang out at their place and help them clean their bikes and polish their bikes, and then as a reward they would let me ride around the block with the bike. And that was when I was in 12, 13, 14 years old, and then I started working in a motorcycle store to make money and to learn about bikes, and I saved the money, and then I bought a little bike that I started racing with in when I turned 16, and I was not the best at preparing the bikes at the beginning. I did not know much. I was not around. I did not grow up in a racing family. And although I spent time in a motorcycle store, it was basically street bikes, and they were not, we were not used to prepare bikes and make them waterproof and all that. And as you know, in Belgium, it's pretty much like England. We had a lot of rain, and so the first races, I had electric issues with the bike, and then over the winter I learned more, and I took the parts of my bike that I thought were good and put other parts on it and mixed suspension and engine and chassis from different bikes. And then I rode the following season. I went to my first race, and then I won that race. And I had to hide the bike from my parents because they did not want me to be involved with motorcycles, and they also could not afford to. Yeah, they also could not afford. I had four brothers, and so my dad had to feed basically seven people, and he had the job working in a steel mill in just outside of Brussels. So I kept the bike at my friend's house, the same guy that let me ride his BSA. He had a BSA Golden Flash, a twin. And so after I won my first race, my dad always would read the newspaper when he got back from work by the fireplace. And he's reading the paper and what is this? Is that you? There was a little, like three lines, local rider wins, and so he go, what is that? Is that you? And yeah, what bike did you ride? On my bike. And well, where is that bike? Renee's, my friend, and but then a couple of weeks later there was another race, and he already had a couple of friends from work, and I overheard him talking. My son, he's pretty good. He won, and he was already boasting.
Who was the competition back when you very first started? Were you riding against riders like Joel?
Yeah, I was pretty quick, competitive as far as speed. In the beginning, I was. People said I was a bit wild, and but the hardest thing to learn was riding the sand. Where I grew up, and the junior races at that time in Belgium were more in the south and west of the country, and not on sand tracks. And then I started going to the Limburg races, and places like Lommel and Genk and so, and they were like a sea of sand. And
yeah,
I would have a good start, and I would bury myself. I remember one crash I had. They almost needed shovels to get me out of. I was under the sand, but I figured out that I better go spend some time there and learn. And then I rode the sand and learned to ride it, and then the sand was fine.
You're not only known for your riding, obviously your riding ability, Roger, but also your technology skills. And I never heard of this make before. F&N motocross bikes, which were
a Belgian bike.
Belgian bike, and I've got a little clip here, so I'm going to bring it up for the people because back in the day, obviously this was the bike to have.
This was Ming's bike, the number 28. But actually, they showed some pictures there of Namur and Batten and so. And Batten was the last world champion from Belgium in the 500 class before myself. And when I was 13 years old, I rode my bicycle from Brussels to Namur to go see the GP there when
No way.
Batten was in a big fight with Bill Nelson. Yeah.
Did you enjoy riding Namur, Roger?
Yes. Yeah, I like Namur mainly because it was a track where it really paid off to set up your bike for the track. And it was an unusual track, as you all know, but I liked it because of those reasons, and because maybe also because the history behind the track, and the fact that I saw my first Grand Prix there ever, and yeah, and it's a special place, and I
Sadly
love that
missed.
track.
Yeah. Actually, while we're on the Namur, I'm gonna jump right forward. This is one question I've been meaning to ask you for 30 years. So you retired 1980, 1989. Look, in Namur, there was a vets race. You remember?
Yes, yes,
And you rode
yeah,
a year-old.
yes,
I think it was one of Eric's Works 500s.
yes, yeah, and
Did refresh my
I had a
memory?
but
Did you win that day?
no, I did not win. I led all the way until half a lap from the end. We were coming to some lap riders, and there was a little double jump. Like basically, it was like speed bumps to slow you down before you came to the asphalt on the bottom. And I changed my line, and it kicked me so hard, and I ended up in the bushes, and Harry Evers passed me, and
That's right.
I finished
That's right.
second. Yeah.
So how did that all come about that you rode a full works bike 9 years after you retired? Obviously, you were still involved with Honda at that stage, but had you
Yeah.
ridden one of those bikes for a while?
Well, I not I don't remember exactly, but for quite a while I did testing when with the Honda bike and the 250s, and sometimes the 500s, and for that was the time that Johnny O'Mara, David Bailey, and all that, and Ricky Johnson were riding the bike. But I still did quite a bit of basic testing.
Right,
Yeah.
that's the
So
question answered. Thanks for that.
yeah.
Over to you,
So
Adam. You
the bike was available. They had asked me to do that race. I think it was a benefit for some goodwill thing, and so it was easy for me to get a bike. You know, I knew all
yeah,
the guys at Honda. I was working for
but
them, and
you weren't. I remember watching, and you guys were not slow. I know you and Harry Everts were going out at hammer and tongs. I think Harry was on one of Stefan's work Suzuki's, and
yes,
you were not mucking about.
uh, yeah, it's. You know, when you have raced, that competitiveness stays there, and it was the same for Harry. You know, yeah,
You're obviously you're still like mega competitive now. You're still working 5 days a week, 7 till 7 at night. Is it?
yeah. I like to get. I really enjoy still what I do, and being part of something that is really competitive, and I enjoy working with young and competitive people that. And to be able to still make a difference, uh, and be part of winning is, I think, the best thing the next best thing to racing yourself.
So obviously, in your younger years, mega competitive as you are now, you were riding the CZ. When did you meet? When did you meet up with Brad Lackey and sort of took him under your wing and lived next door to him, or he lived next door to you, should I say?
Yeah. Well, the first time I saw Brad, I'd seen Brad actually in California before during some of the Trans Am races or so. But then I was at the factory. I was in Strakonice, and I worked for the CZ importer also, and I was picking up parts for the importer and also things for my own bike. And I could understand a little bit of Czech and also German. Most of the older mechanic they spoke a few words of German at the time at the factory. And I was there in the morning, and one of the mechanics says, "Hey, Amerikanski, you know." And he points to the other side of the workshop, and there's this young guy with long hair, and Brad was, I think, 16 at the time, and so that's where I saw him the first time outside of of the US.
So you would have been about sort of 10 years older than Brad. You would have been about 26. So you were like sort of to look after him, did you? Or
Yeah, well, it did not happen right away, but then I got to know him a little bit more in the races in the US, and then he was. The Americans were very welcoming to me when I first came to the US, like Bud Eakins and his brother Dave, and a lot of other people, motorcycle dealers, and so that put us up to let us work in their workshop and all that. And I felt that I owed young guys that coming the other way. I felt that I should give some help, and that's why a lot of the Americans ended up spending time in Belgium. And Brad lived just around the corner from me. Danny Laporte did so a while later. Mark Blackwell was around me in Belgium, but he stayed mostly in Sweden, but he spent some time in Belgium also.
Talking of Americans, Roger, what was it like racing with Bob Hanna?
Bob was really a tough competitor, and he talked a big story, and but he was one of those guys that he talked big, but he backed it up, and you had to be ready for him because he would try everything to beat you. And I have a lot of respect for Bob. And after I stopped, I actually hired him on the Honda team to join David Bailey and O'Mara. And he was still very competitive. And if it was not for an injury, he probably would have won at least one of the championships. Brad is, Bob was a competitive guy, and he would we would go into staging for practice in the morning, and he would come. I usually try to line up one of the first guys to start practice, and he would come and right next to me, and I would just be putting around, do my first lap to look at the track, see with the holes and all that, and he would be rubbing my leg with his front wheel, and yeah.
Going back to those CZ days, just before we get off of the CZ days, where Dave lives is just round the corner from Hammer Warren. We know it as Matcham's Park. Did you have fond memories of Matcham's Park? Because obviously when you were riding there, like 4 inches or 5 inches of travel, and you're going around there on a CZ, I think it was in 1969.
Yeah, except for the pebbles, I liked it.
Yeah.
Everybody
mentions the pebbles.
Yeah,
a great track. Sadly, we've lost the use of it for probably about the last 4 or 5 years. But yeah, fabulous track. Everybody seems to have raced there at one stage in their career.
Yeah, it was usually Good Friday when we raced
That's
there
it. Yeah,
at the
always.
time, and then we after the race we would race to Dover or Folkestone and get on the boat and race in Belgium the Easter Trophy.
All right. Okay. Okay.
I don't know whether you've ever seen this, Roger, but have a check it out.
The start finish straight. It really is an eye opener. That's the start finish straight.
No, I'd never seen it.
Yeah,
That's
nor
pretty
have I.
cool.
Where did you find that?
that the end straight was like a sort of almost like a modern wave section, and you're like,
Yeah,
like I say, on
yeah,
like 4 inches of travel.
yeah.
It's just like
But it was the same for everybody, and we all were on this short travel, and so it's all relative.
but that's what I mean. There's not a tractor in sight. There's not a grader in sight. You'll just
Right.
turn up, race around these old tracks with massive big holes in on not substandard machinery, but the machinery back in the day was a lot
Yeah.
tougher than most probably the machinery it is today.
Yeah, the bikes have become so good, so unbelievably good that, and that's what we are supposed to do. But in turn, it makes the track builders try to make steeper and steeper obstacles and to try to slow the bikes down. But it's becoming very difficult, and contrary to MotoGP racing, we don't have any runoff room in most tracks, and that's one of the issues where we have a lot of injuries in motocross, and where MotoGP guys now they can crash at 100 miles an hour or more and get up most of the time and walk away.
Has MXGP or any of the bodies ever come to you and said, Roger, can we have your opinion? You know, to tell us what to do, or you've been in the game for such a long time, your experience.
Yeah, I these days I don't go to the GPs very often, but I do talk with David and his dad Giuseppe and you know, of course I talk to my own people, Pete Byer and Robert Jonas and those people, and they on regular contact, and they're also looking into what could be done to make racing safer. And some people are pushing to make smaller engines, limit the displacement, make what is the open class now, make that a 250, and then go to 125 to replace the current 250. But in my opinion, and I think a lot of people are starting to agree with me, is that it will not make any difference on the injuries, because lap times on practically the same from a 250 and a 500 today, or 450. But it would make racing way more expensive, and it's already too expensive. That's why we're losing teams, and it's more and more difficult, and becoming more of a rich man's sport than
KTM obviously see the two-stroke as still a current bike. Have they got any, any development ideas on how to make the two-stroke better?
Well, they had a fuel injected two strokes now, and they have that technology, and it's working. It's very competitive with enduro and all that as of now, and it will. I'm sure it's going to get more competitive on motocross as well. And but The problem is we need all the manufacturers to make two strokes, and so that the promoters be interested to put on races for them. Uh,
Yeah,
I am pushing, and there's some people that pushing for more two-stroke races, and I think now, like especially in the US, in Europe, they've done a better job, but in the US, a kid that starts, he starts on a 50 or 60, he goes to 80s, and then from 80 he has to jump to a 254 stroke. It's way too big a step, and although the better kids may have the talent to ride them fast, but as long as everything goes well, but they cannot. They have a hard time to save themselves if they swap or make a mistake. The consequences are bigger.
What
But
what what is what I found is a very interesting fact. Yourself, you didn't start riding until you were 16, and you won 5 world championships.
yeah,
Joel Smet started at 17, and he won 5 world championships. And both of you, I think, were pretty injury free, relatively.
yeah, yeah. There is a lot of pressure on young kids today, and the equipment is like it's so good, and so the bikes build speed so quick out of the turn that and then because the bikes are so good, the promoters make jumps that are very steep. The faces are very steep, so it's not the speed that kills you, but it's the sudden stop, you know.
yeah, absolutely.
And,
Do you ever express an opinion? Oh, I mean, are you in a position at a race to express an opinion about something you might consider to be dangerous, Roger?
yes, I do, and um, especially in Supercross, I always pay attention to the track as soon as I get there, and if I see something that is obvious, I point it out to the organization, and um, most of the time they will try to make a remedy and improve it. Sometimes they don't, and so, Supercross is also the schedule is tight, and and they don't always agree with my opinion, of course.
When you were managing, obviously, the Honda team, and David Bailey had his accident, did you have to do a lot of soul searching to sort of carry on in the sport, or?
Yes, that was difficult, and David was such a measured rider. He was not a wild man, and for him to get hurt, and it was the second lap of practice on a warm-up race in California, and I think he was still kind of cold. It was uh, a cold morning, at least for California weather, and it was a very small obstacle, and he he probably was not 100% focused or something, and the bike swapped. He ended up on the ground, and first it looked like it was nothing, and then the next thing, he could not move his legs, and we had to call the ambulance and then get a helicopter to transfer him to a hospital that could take care of him. Yeah, it was
Oh, you were actually
it
there,
was
were you, Roger?
yeah, I was there. His wife was there, and I asked for the helicopter to take his wife along, and they didn't want to do that. So it was about the hospital was about 200 miles away, and I I jumped in my car and took her with me, and we drove straight to the hospital. And I got there. I saw the helicopter land when, so we went. I went wide open, and um, And then I was the one that the doctor spoke to first about what what the injury was, and was really hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I get those years, those Honda years. Did Honda ever have a budget, or did you just spend, spend, spend? Because they had the best riders, the most exotic bikes. It was like money was no problem.
Yeah, Mr. Miyakoshi, who was the boss of our racing at Honda at that time. That was before there was HRC actually. Uh, he was very good at getting the budget for racing. Inside the company, he fought for racing tooth and nails to get everything we could think of, and he expected he expected results. He expected he was hard to work for in a way, because you had to be the best, or he would yell at you, or you would be fired. But he was it was awesome to work those years with him, because we did so many things, new things, and tried so many different things, like linkages, a double pro link, twin cylinders, rotary valve engines. Yeah, we did so many things. Automatic 250. It was fun.
Did the European HRC did they exchange information with you, and did you exchange information with them on the bikes?
You're talking in the early 80s, and
Yes.
when I
Yeah.
was running the team in America. Yeah, we exchanged information with Japan, and they in turn would communicate to Europe, to who was running the team in Europe. But at that time, there was a complete split between the factory team and the production group, and that's one of the first things I did when I came to KTM, is uh, making sure that the production group and the factory, which is called Motorsports now at KTM, that they communicate with each other on regular basis, and they have actually a meeting now once a week, the head people from both groups, because many times, and especially since the production rule came, you cannot make a complete new bike. So you start with the rail production bike, and make that your race bike. In those years, all the Japanese companies, I think it was the same with pretty much all the Japanese. They had parallel groups, production and racing, and they would barely talk to each other. It was maybe in some cases more competitive than with other brands. Yeah, it was very strange.
Talking of like technology and Hondas and stuff, what was this bike like to ride, Roger?
That bike,
That's the Suzuki, I think.
Yeah, it's the
that was a
Suzuki.
Suzuki. Yeah, that was the Ribby front end,
Valentino
and
Ribby. Yeah,
yeah, um, I had become friends with Valentino for a long time, and what prompted me to race some GPs with it, a couple of GPs with it, was I got an acromio separation at a local race before the Austrian Grand Prix, and that was like on the Thursday before the Grand Prix, and we had been playing with those forks and working on them and trying them, and the one characteristic was really good. It was on braking bumps. It was unbelievably good, and square edges. It was better than anything I've ever ridden with. the negative part was on jumps, and at that time, jumps did not have ramps on the backside like today. They would put a jump and you flat, the landings were flat. In that case, it was not so good because it would go through the travel, and you did not have the help from friction when a telescopic fork bent and the two tubes bending in each other add a lot of friction damping in landings. So that's the advantage of the telescopic fork. But because of my injury, I decided to try to ride with it, and I did finish fourth with it at Sittendorf at the Austrian Grand Prix, which is a track where there is a lot of downhill, bumpy braking, and I don't think I could have done fourth place with the regular forks.
And Suzuki were obviously your team were obviously happy for you to use those.
I'm sure not everybody was happy, but I did, and and then later when I went to Honda, I had talked to the engineers at Honda about it and that the good things about it, and they were so open to try different things that they actually made a deal with Reeby and bought the rights to his patents.
Is that right?
Yes.
Which they obviously still own. Did they never produce any for you to try?
Yes, and they won a Japanese 125 championship with that bike. That's the bike there. Yeah.
Yeah, crikey, that was the twin
you guys did
cylinder
some
one.
Homework. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I only knew I was interviewing. Well, we were interviewing you yesterday morning, and before I forget, I'd just like to thank Roger's wife for setting this up. Without Roger's wife, this wouldn't be happening. So, if you're watching, Roger's wife, thank you very much for sorting this out for us. Really appreciate it. Yeah, that was the twin, whatever it was, 125. Ribby for Honda.
Yeah, wasn't that the bike? Didn't the FIM ban that bike for?
I think at some point they made at some point I think they made the rule about no twin cylinders at some point. Yeah,
because of the expense, I guess, and I guess that was a crazy expensive bike to build.
Yeah, for sure, and it was super fast, but it needed RPM, so it was hard to ride on a track that
Did you actually ride it? Did you ride it?
Yeah,
Roger?
I rode that bike. Yes, yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Are there any bikes, Roger, that you've got or you wish you've kept over the years?
I wish I'd kept the Java. I wish I had kept the Java, or that I would have been able to keep the Java from the factory Java from '65. That was a very unusual bike and very, very interesting. You did a cassette gearbox that you could leave the engine in the frame and change the gearbox, and it was really fast, but it was at that time it was a single port exhaust, and at that time the piston rings were not the quality that they are today. They were more brittle, and it would break piston rings pretty easily, and then it trashed the whole cylinder, of course, and piston.
Yeah, but I did see recently that you all your bikes have gone to Terry Good, to the museum in Chicago.
Yeah, I made an agreement with him that he could have the bikes, display them, and we have an agreement for that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hope that museum comes to fruition, because he's certainly got some bikes there. And the stuff that you sent them, it was truckloads. It wasn't just one or two bikes, was it? It was truckloads.
Yeah, it was a semi full. Yeah.
And some of the boxes I saw had never been opened from when they were shipped over from Europe.
Yes, that's correct.
A lot of
Yeah.
stuff.
But there will be. Terry has a lot of other nice stuff. A lot of unusual bikes. I think the only real interesting bike that he doesn't have is the Works FN.
Right.
I think
Okay.
he's trying to get one, but he has some of Lundin's bike. I think he has a lot of stuff from Leslie Archer also, um, and I think he could not get the bike. It's probably in a museum in England.
Okay.
Leslie's bike, a
Okay.
championship bike from '56. Yeah.
When you went to the motocross Des Nations in '81, Roger, obviously all Hondas, no budget. I think the guy that owned Motocross magazine funded it or whatever, or put some money into it. Did you think you had a chance of winning?
Yes. Yeah. I never go to a race without thinking that I have a chance of winning.
Because it was
Even when
supposedly.
I was racing myself, when I started, for some reason, I always believe I had a chance to win, although it was counterbalanced with a worry that maybe it would not be possible. But deep inside, I always felt that there was a chance to win.
Yeah. You
'Cause it was,
did a pretty good job of picking the teams each year.
Yeah, we were lucky that for many years our top guys wanted to go and wanted to be part of the nation, but it's been a struggle in the last half a dozen years. And part of it is the schedule and some of the manufacturers are not so supportive of it as well.
Uh,
And,
uh, what's
but
your
to me, the na- I was going to say that to me, the nation is still the biggest single dirt race on motorcycle in the year in the world. You know.
if
absolutely?
if you could choose any nationality rider, who would be on your team? You know, modern
Well,
and
right
today. If
now,
you could, yeah, well, not right now. So right now, you choose from right now. Back in the day, you could choose, say, 4 people for your team. Who would it be?
well, like when I first did it, when we took the whole Honda team, it was cool because you had control over everything, and you know we could exchange information on the bike settings and everything. When you're with different factories, it becomes very difficult, you know, and sometime, you know, if I go and take a team these days with Eli Tomac on a Kawasaki let's say if I take a Honda rider and a KTM rider, well, they're not gonna want me to. They're not gonna like me to be involved with the bike or bike setup, and vice versa. You know, the KTM guys are not gonna want the Kawasaki people to come in our honing and look at what we do with the bike. So uh, when we did it with the whole Honda team, it was fun and especially nobody expected us to do well on the first one, so that made it even better.
But your job in the last 2 or 3 years has obviously got harder with picking the riders, because you must have an inkling of who want to go and who doesn't.
Yeah, I know the riders that like to go and, uh, and maybe they're not always maybe the best choice, but It also doesn't do you much good to take a rider that doesn't want to be there and force him to go. You know,
Who's your best rider? Who would be your best rider, Roger? Over the years, who stands out for you of your years in motocross?
well, we had a lot of success with Dungy. Dungy was and it was good for several reasons. One is we picked him up when nobody was really. He did not have anybody that really believed or was really after him or anything. He was an intermediate amateur, and he used to come with his dad to some of the pro races and come and hang on our awnings, and ask questions and all that. And I decided to invite him and let him try one of our race bikes, and he did really well. And then he accepted to, and his parents accepted to a very a very progressive agreement where there was no money in the beginning, and and it would build as the results came, and it ended up working out really good for him and for us.
Is he still making a comeback, Roger, for next year?
No,
No, that was just talk, was it?
no. There was some interest. He was talking about coming back, and he had talks with Honda about it. That did not work out. Then he came back to us, and there was our team in KTM was full, but then with the gas brand coming, and we had instructions from the factory to build a team with gas. So we could have potentially, there was a possibility to do something there, but Ryan wanted everything to be the same as when he quit 3 years ago, and we could not offer him that, and so he decided to stay retired.
Yeah. Personally, I think that was a wise move not to be. When you've been away for 3 years, I guess he still rides a bike, but I guess things, move on and change that quickly. It's never going to be like when when you were doing your last race.
48.
Ryan was really not that old. He's just turned 30 now, so and he never stopped training. I think he's as fit as the day he stopped. He doesn't ride the bike a lot, but the fitness is still there. So maybe he could have done it. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Obviously, Belgium's a massive motocross. It's motocross central. 48 world championships the Belgians have won. What would you say to Jeffrey Herlings about his career? What advice would you give him? Because I spoke to, I won't mention any names, a couple of people that are pretty good, and they say he needs to slow down a bit and for his longevity of his career. What would you say?
Yeah, it's hard to say without. I don't know what his daily routine is. I know that either in his past years he wins or he gets hurt. It's one extreme or the other, and for sure there is some things that they need to do to preserve his body, and if he wants to keep racing for a while. But it's hard for me to give him precise advice without really being around him. I see him once a year, twice a year, maybe. I usually do go to a GP at least once a year, and and then the nation. But you cannot say much in seeing guys just on race weekend.
What at KTM at the moment, Roger? What are your day-to-day responsibilities? Are you the man that hires and fires the riders?
I never do anything without speaking to the team about things, and usually finding a rider takes there's a lot of things that would have to happen, without being corrected over a longer period of time. It's never, oh, today you fired because you did not win or something like that. That it doesn't happen like that.
Yeah, got you.
Well, Roger, we could go on all day, but like it's a Sunday morning in California, so I'm just going to bring some quotes up that some people have popped up. We've got some other motocross riders watching. That's Chuck's son. Hey, Roger, thanks for the input to my entire racing experience. Hi, Chuck.
Hi, Chuck. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, we had him on last week, and he looks like he's having fun wherever he goes.
I'm just trying to get the others.
Good.
We've got somebody from Italy watching as well, from the Kawasaki our greatest greetings, Kawasaki VMX Museum, Italy. So yeah,
cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your time today, Roger.
You guys are welcome.
Yeah, it was a brilliant interview.
Yeah,
like I say,
keep up the good work.
Thank you. Hey, Roger, I got one question for you.
Nice to see you guys at.
I've got one question for next year. The Nations. Well, I guess you'll be picking the team is in Italy. I think it's the 26th of September. 2 weeks before that, there's this quite big race or quite big event in England, a place called Farleigh Castle.
Yes.
The door is always open for you, and the offer is always out. We don't want you to ride. We just like you to, if you come there, turn up, walk around, and just be a legend. That's all we're asking. If your time allows.
Yeah. Actually, I would like to do that if I can fit it in and make some sense with the schedule.
Okay.
I want to come back there and see Farleigh. I have good memories from that place.
Yeah, no, thank you. Okay, well, I'll keep in touch with you. We'll see how the years go. But as I say, you'd have a nice 2-week holiday. You come to us and then sort your riders out for the Nations, win the Nations in Italy, and go home a happy man.
That would be good. That would be cool. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger.
Thank you, Roger. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And, have a nice Christmas and
happy Christmas.
Safe Christmas and a happy New Year, and hopefully see you at Farleigh Castle next year.
All right. Thank you, and best wishes to your listeners too.
Thank you.
Cheers, Roger.
Yeah. Bye. 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 Bye.
You heard it here first, Adam.
I just don't know what to say when you get a legend on like that. It's like
I've had responses before, and that was a good one. I can tell you that means he's coming.
Yeah, that'd be God. That'd bring a.
I'm sweating.
Yeah. It's same old thing. There was so much I wanted to. There's so much. There's no.
And your mind goes totally blank.
I've got it on paper what I wanted to ask, but the conversation goes one way or the other.
I know. It's. I'm terrible, and anybody watching will know, and you especially will pick me up on it. As I jump from one era to another, I can't wait. I've got to hear my story.
It's weird. It's not easy. It takes a lot of time to sort of settle this stuff up. You just have to sort of go with the flow sometimes, and it is
Yeah,
what it is. I'm not a
hey,
professional interviewee or anything. I just do it because
well,
I love
yeah,
it. The
none of
same
us
as
are.
yourself, you know.
Yeah, none of us are. As you can see by my coat hangers up
It's-
there, I'm not professional. Just have a go. Do the best we can.
But look, you could actually talk his obviously his stories just as long as you want it to be. And before Roger came on, he said 30 minutes. So I thought we'd
Oh,
been going
crikey.
we've been going about 50
Crikey,
because
yeah. You get
if
us in
you
trouble.
working 7 days a week, I'm sorry, 5 days a week, 7 till 7, and then we take
Yeah.
it Sunday morning up.
Well, and the sunshine in there as well.
But yeah, before you go, Dave, I'm gonna if you want, I've got those pictures of that bike you're doing. If you want to bring them
Oh,
up on
right.
the
Okay.
screen
Yeah, okay.
and tell,
That's that. Well, that picture's taken out
yeah,
of Cross Action magazine
yeah,
in '89 when they were given the bike to test it. No, I don't think they did test it. I think they were just given it to take apart and just show what technology they were doing. But you can see,
the seat,
yeah, see the seat. There's no fuel cap or anything up there. That's just the seat goes right the way along, and then you can just see the carbon fiber petrol tank that's in two
yeah,
pieces that wraps around the cylinder. But that, like the works Hondas, that's the one the Vimon rode. That's the same bike. But the tank was obviously lower than the carburetor, so it ran off of a fuel pump that that uh, that ran off of a battery. But yeah, an interesting bike, and really a part of American and Grand Prix motocross history, and it'd be cool to have it at Farley, world exclusive, never seen before since Hollister GP in '89.
and you you might have to sort of, you never know. I expect Roger still throws his leg over a bike. You might have to
Oh,
let him do it.
absolutely,
You
yeah.
might have to let him do a lap on it.
Oh, yeah, I know where to go and what bike to get there for Roger. He'll if he's there, which I'm sure he will be. He'll steal the show. I can't. When was the last time he was at Farley? It would have been mid-70s.
I didn't.
No,
Yeah,
no, no. Was he there 79?
I,
And yeah, 79.
well, that's it. We didn't even get on to asking him about like the UK Grand Prix and stuff, and obviously we
Well,
spoke about.
apart from matches, and there's still, I find it still dead cool that that whoever you talk to that raced at Matchams, they talk about the pebbles because that's exactly in its later days. It wasn't quite as some soil got introduced to it, and it wasn't like it was in the like 50s, 60s, and 70s. But there was those tiny little pebbles that were like bloody bullets, and if you were behind a 500, it was awful.
What does amaze me though is the track, how rough it was, you know, and on the old bikes, they would, if a modern day person saw that track, they wouldn't ride it until it
Oh
was
God,
like,
yeah, absolutely. I remember, in my time, in the really through the '80s, it was a guy called Reg Schlack that wrote that ran it there, and I don't ever remember seeing a machine or a grading bar or anything. It was just as rough as guts. But if you could ride round Matchams, you could pretty much ride round anywhere. And
yeah,
that place. That place was open. I think it was famously advertised. It was only one day a year, Christmas Day, that it was shut. So you could literally just turn up there and ride any day of the year. And during this Grand Prix season, on a Wednesday, it was like a full-on Grand Prix there with the guys riding. We used to nip out from lunchtime for work and go up there, and Kurt would be there. Dave Thorpe, Watt Lee, Kevin Froud, all the big names from England would be there religiously every week.
that Easter meeting, there must have been some good money in it for those guys to come from Belgium and just for the day to ride, you know.
Oh yeah, what, the Hants Ground, you mean?
Yeah, the Hants Grand National,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean I think that was the Ringwood motorcycle and light car club that used to run that. I mean, they must have had a fruity old budget to get those guys over. Back, we're talking the '70s. And right through to the very early '80s, they ran that meeting. By the way, Hammer Warren is a different track to Matchams.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
There
yeah,
you
yeah.
go. I thought it was the same.
No, no, no. Matchams was used for the Hants Grand up until I think 1980 would have been the last one. And then for some reason or another, I don't know why it changed. They went to Hammer Warren, which is about 5 miles up the road. Very, very similar terrain, but I would say not as good.
Do you know what happened to Matcham's, Dave? Why it shut down?
No.
It's a
No,
mystery. There
I
were
don't.
all these rumours, weren't there, about...
I don't. I think if somebody wanted to open it, they could. I don't think the hurdles are there that people think are there.
Because it's still... I went there about 3 years ago to the go-karting place on a stag do, and it's still like... You look over and it's pretty much still
No,
there.
it's like a time warp, isn't it? Yeah, I know. I've seen photos. In fact, over Christmas, I must walk up there because I've seen photos of people going up there, and it just looks exactly the same as it did. Well, why wouldn't it? There's nothing else you can do with it.
Yeah, what was it? Murray Walker? There was a rumour saying that...
No, that was total nonsense.
That's what I would have thought.
Total nonsense. No, absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. No, I mean, undoubtedly, the era of the four-stroke bike, the building of the Grand Prix track for 2005 didn't help. The four strokes didn't help. Practicing up there didn't help. Times were changing. People's tolerance to hearing motorbikes was changing, and I think in the end it was just all too much lumped together. That was the problem. But as I say, if somebody really wanted to sort it out, I'm sure they could. But the wheel's got to be there. And obviously, it's got to make financial sense for somebody.
I look forward to your Good Friday meeting then, Dave. Vets MX DN qualifying round.
Yeah, that Hants Grand National meeting for me was as good as a Grand Prix. It was our local meeting. It was 10 minutes up the road, and I don't know. The atmosphere there was just mustard. Did you never go? You was too young, I guess.
I was too young, Dave. I only rode there as a kid. I was lucky enough to ride it when I'd done schoolboys, but it was like Farley Castle. When I used to see Farley Castle on TV as a kid, I used to think it was a million miles away. I didn't realise it was like an hour down the road.
Yeah, well, everywhere seemed so far, didn't it, back then?
Yeah.
For me in the 80s to go to Farley seemed like a long way. In reality, it was like an hour and a half drive. To the thought of going to Hawkstone was like driving to the moon and back. It just never. You just, I don't know. You didn't sort of. I certainly didn't have the money to go warrant traveling like that. I had a house and young kids early on.
How did you get into the motorbikes, Dave? I expect people want to know, because you didn't do schoolboys, did you?
No, I wished I did. No, I kept on and on and on at my mum and dad, but my mum and dad didn't have any money for it, and I was unfortunate or fortunate at school. I was at school in the same class as Neil Hannam and Russell Priddle. Neil and Russell used to give Dave Thorpe a run for their money. Russell turned pro for a short time, and I'm sure Neil could have done as well. And many remember Neil's brother Phil Hannam, who was a pro rider. So those three guys were at school with me, and I used to come in on a Monday and hear all the stories about them, at Ringwood Schoolboy Scramble Club, and it was just that was the only thing I wanted to do, and then when you can't do it, it sort of makes it worse. You know what I mean? If I'm sure if I'd have done Schoolboy Scrambling, I'd be cured by now. We wouldn't be talking. I'd have a normal life.
Phil, that was Small World Kawasaki, was it?
No. That was Phil and Chris Small were two. No, it was.
Oh yeah,
they were from Portsmouth area.
Yeah. I was just thinking. When you said Phil Hannam, I'm just thinking Phil Small World Kawasaki for some reason.
Yeah, no, they had Phil, Brian Hannam. Their dad had Hannam's. They're the biggest dealership in the area. They were Honda, Suzuki, and I think they did Kawasaki at that time. They were huge. I mean, anybody my age and down this neck of the woods would remember Hannam's. It was just the place to go. It was the only place to go to buy your bike, really.
Yeah, Windsor Comp was where we used to get our bikes. when I was a kid.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that name. But again, driving up there would have been like.
I suppose it was. I'm from Reading. So it's most probably. I don't know whether it was the nearest place or the best deal or what. But
Did you ever have a brand new bike?
every year.
Like, see, I put this question up on VMXDN last week, expecting people to say, "Oh yeah, I had one or two." Like I had one brand new bike once in '82, and that was it.
I was lucky.
People are like listing 20 or 30 bikes. And I'm like, where the hell did you lot get the money from?
I've got to say thank you to my mum and dad while we're live on air. Bless, they're still with me, with us. The money it would have cost them, I sort of got to quite a good standard in schoolboys. I'd won quite a few club championships. I was lucky enough that every year that I bought a new bike, and it was generally a Honda until '94. I had a Kawasaki because it was 82cc, so they were quicker.
Right. Did you all used to go as a family unit?
It's a family day out, brilliant days. It's just like you pay for it.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what I think that, like Roger Decoster starting at 16 and Joel Smets at 17. It's pretty. I think you should start a bit later, because if you start at 6 like I did, by the time I was 15, I'd had like 2 knee operations, broke my leg twice.
Well, I didn't start till I was 20. So how does that work? I didn't become world champion. What did I do wrong? Was it just crap?
Well, I don't know. It's just like, some people have some it's weird, and I don't think you can. That's one thing. Like surely I think you can help people on a bike, but some people are just naturally gifted. I don't know what you think.
Definitely. I remember when I first started in AMCA in '81, I would go to the meetings absolutely petrified, and I would be like waiting in the pit box, and I'd be wishing the race before the red flag and the meeting be abandoned. I didn't have to go out and race. But then as soon as the gate would drop, you realise why you were there. You really wanted it. But those nerves in between races were just horrible.
Yeah, I always used to I get arm pumped. That's when I ride. I don't know whether it's just like because I hadn't rode much. When I rode at Farley Castle, your meeting in 2010, I tried to ride as much as I could. But
I've never. I don't know what when people go on about arm pump. I honestly can say if I have had it, I don't know what it is. Perhaps that's because I've been a brickie all my life and used to handling heavy things. But or either that, or I'm just so bloody slow.
I was just going to say I was going to say you're not going fast enough, but I think
that's probably what it is.
Some people suffer. Even the road racers, you see them, don't you? Going down after a Grand Prix, shaking their arms.
No. That bloke I saw do it to you at Farley. That was a different reason. That
was. Oh dear. Well, I suppose we better.
How much time have we paid for? A couple of hours?
Oh no, we can go on all night. Yeah. We still got. There's still a lot of people watching. There's still 61.
Yeah, well, there's still nothing on telly, is there? Is it Sports Personality of the Year or something tonight?
Talking of Sports Personality of the Year, what's my opinion?
Dave Thorpe should have won it years ago.
Yeah, it's like you get a world champion in a sport like anything to do with motorbikes.
Yeah, well, nowadays it's anything that the BBC pays to put on telly. If it's not on the BBC, you're not going to be there.
It's like you say, Dave Thorpe, 3 times world champion, Ty Woofington, Speedway world champion, and you don't ever see it on the news, or obviously Dave Thorpe's years ago. But if he what
you do see on the news now, somebody's paid to get it there.
Yeah, it's very annoying.
Yeah, no, exactly. We all love motocross, and we all think motocross should be get a lot more exposure than it does. Which I suppose in reality it does, because it's more accessible to us now than it ever was, wasn't it? I can click on. I pay 80 quid a year and I get the AMA and the GPs live to my telly. 30 years ago you couldn't get that. The only way back then that I got as a spectator, got the results. You either went to the meeting, or on a Monday morning, in the back pages of the Daily Mail, they would give the top 3 results of the 125, 250, and 500 GP, and that was how I got my info. And then you had to wait another 5 days for TMX to come out on a Friday to actually see photos of it.
Has there ever been any talk of like the Vets MXDN could it ever get a TV? You know, like I suppose like the Goodwood Festival of Speed. For me, that's what Farley Castle is. The Vets MXDN. It's a festival of motocross, really, isn't it? The who's who of, you know, everyone knows about it in the motocross world.
In all honesty, no, nobody's ever talked about it, probably because there's no money to be made out of it. That would just cost somebody a shed load of money.
I suppose you need Guy Martin or somebody like that to enter it, and
but even then, it's still not. I wished, I wished somebody would, because as fans, like hardcore fans like us, we would enjoy it. But whether punters out there who didn't really have a lot of knowledge of the sport, I don't know whether they would want to see it or not.
Who would you like to see, Dave, at Vets MXDN, or the one that got away, or you'd really like to sort of get there?
Carl Quest for sure, the one that got away. Gutted that really. I did my best to try and track him down for years with other people's help, and we got a phone number, we got an address. But if somebody doesn't want to come, you've got to respect their privacy and not push it, because people. I know guys like me really haven't moved on in our lives. We're still stuck with this, bloody motocross in our, in our blood. But other people have been able to get out and move on to a normal life. Years ago, just 2 or 3 years ago, if somebody said to me, "Oh, Ricky Johnson will be coming," I'd have laughed in their face and said, "No, he'll never come. He'll never come."
It's same for me. Like when you messaged me and said, "Oh yeah, the next interview is Ricky Johnson," and my sort of jaw dropped. I was like, "What? I'm going to be talking to Ricky Johnson?" A bit like talking to Roger Decoster tonight.
But like in years to come, I like to with the big names bring the younger ones on, because we're all getting older and not everybody is interested in the older guys. Like the Ivan Tedescos, the Steve Ramons, the Ken Dykers. They've only recently been out of the sport, so they bring in a whole different generation of spectator that will hopefully keep the event going. But the ones, I suppose, if you're going to ask me now, if there was somebody I'd really want to get, there would be Jeremy McGrath. Obviously, I think he's just turned 50. Whether that'll ever happen, I doubt it. And then I don't know, 5 years time, 10 years time, you imagine having somebody like James Stewart come to the event. Because their time will come. Well, whether it'll be me doing it, or hopefully, somebody will pick it up. Younger with some, maybe some different ideas.
I don't know whether I've still got it, but I did have a list. I kept it when we'd done our first interview of who's been at the meeting.
I've tried to do those lists, and
I'll read it out for people, because there's still people watching saying, "I love this, absolutely epic." Thank you, Brendan Stratford, who said that. But
Brendan, you must be really bored, mate. Come on.
There you go. But there you go, people. This is just Graham Noyes, Dave Thorpe, Kirk Nicol, Neil Hudson, Greg Hansen, Andre Mellab, George Jobe, Jem Watley, Rob Herring, Jamie Dobb, Brian Wheeler, Rob Andrews, Ron Lachine, Jeff Ward, Ryan Hughes, Jeff Stanton, Jeff Leask, John Banks, Mark Banks, John Dowd, Doug DeBack, Mike Brown, Jean-Michel Bell, Frederick Bolly, Yves Demara, Jackie Vimon, Josh Coppins, Gordon Crockard, Werner DeWitt, Johan Boonen, Mark Eastwood, Ricky Johnson, Brock Glover,
Shane King,
another
world champion.
And the list
the list just goes. Lawrence Spence. The trouble is, when you start those lists, it's almost never ending unless well, the trouble is a lot of them weren't in the program. So, unless somebody's got a really good memory, we're never going to know.
But it's like, for me, I've been really lucky because I've been to the meeting every year, and I've just seen everybody who I idled as a kid. Like I got to start George Joe Bay's bike.
Oh, wow.
I was stood on that first corner when he'd done a parade lap, and he stalled his bike. And for those of you that know, one of his legs was a bit.
Was that the Suzuki or the Kawasaki?
It was the Kawasaki, yeah.
Do you know what? That was the last time he ever rode a motocross bike.
Yeah,
that was Lee Jackson loaned the bike, didn't he? It was a Works SR 500.
So I hopped over the fence. Obviously, all the people watching, I'm thinking, if I don't start this, I'm going to look a complete tool. Luckily,
he was such. I really, really got on well with Joe Bell. Really not bonded with him, but you know what I mean. He spoke my language. He was, I don't know. He was a bit of a. I want to say. I said to him, "You seem more English than Belgian." He had that sort of humour about him, and he was just a real fun guy to be around.
Yeah, that was obviously so sad when he passed. Well, he told us all, didn't he, at Farley Castle, that in the evening in the beer tent that he'd got leukemia.
Yeah,
and it was his
and
biggest
of course
battle.
he'd been before that. He'd had that injury where he was paralysed. So that's what he was carrying when he came to us first.
Yeah, that's why he couldn't take the bike over.
Yeah, and he was. I think that was in Dubai. He had because he was running KTM out in Dubai at the time, and he had some really. I remember him telling me he had a real slow speed crash on a corner, but as soon as his sort of head went down funny, he knew he'd done something, and he had the savvy straight away to really to instruct people on how they should react and try and get him to recover.
I'm actually in email contact with another mega motocross rider for people that are watching, Andre Melherb. Obviously, he came in. Was it 2009 or 2010?
2009. Yeah, that was. I know I've told this story 1,000 times on Facebook, but that to this day, I would never believe that phone call. I was down at Farley on the Wednesday before, putting the start gate up. I think I was there on my own. And nothing had happened before. Don't forget, the meeting hadn't even happened at that stage, so nobody knew what it was going to be like. Nobody knew if anybody was going to turn up or not. And I was doing the start gate, and my phone rang, and it was obviously a foreign number, a Belgian number I recognised. And this guy said, "Hello, is that Dave King?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "It's Andre Malherbe here. Can I come to your meeting at the weekend?" And I'm like, "Yeah, right. Yeah, it's who?" and he said, "No, it's Andre Malherbe." And like then the penny dropped on me, and I'm like, "Oh God, sorry. Yeah, of course you can come to my meeting. Absolutely." Yeah, and then he just turned up and just fantastic. Because because that first year we had the Dave Thorpe came, didn't he, and rode the RC 500, and Andre was there. I think that was Neil Hudson there that year. He must have been.
Most probably. Like you say, I just like they've amalgamated into one because there's just been so many stars there of the 80s, the 90s, 2000s.
Really, the year really that sort of kick-started it, I think, was that year I went over to America to get some American guys to come over, and we got Jim Gibson, who was part of Team USA, Scott Burnworth, Chuck's son, and Jeff Stanton to come over. And the Jeff Stanton story was just a cracker. I went to Vegas to watch it must have been the last round of the Supercross, I think. This would have been about 2011. No, it must have been 2011. And I'm wandering around like totally starstruck in the pits and, seeing all these old guys. Then all of a sudden out of Wyndham's Honda truck walks Jeff Stanton. And I'm like straight up to him. thrust my hand out. Hey, Jeff. And I gave him a video of the previous year's meeting. I said, Jeff, would you come to Farley in September and ride a vintage bike? And he just said, yeah, okay. And I'm like, oh, right, okay, thanks very much. And I walked away and I thought, oh, yeah, that was the classic. Yeah, I'll come. And you're like, see ya. I'm never going to see you again. And then we'd had a couple of exchanges of messages beforehand, and I still wasn't convinced he was going to come. And then, like on the Friday morning, him and his son were walking through the paddock, and it was like, "Wow, you're here!" And he said, "Yeah, I said I was coming." And yeah, I mean that American team really, I think, put us on the map, as well as having teams like do you remember the Australian guys who came the year before?
God, yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, what a trip that must have been to come from Australia to ride at Farley. That was crazy.
That's true, actually. We all, obviously, we're always going to talk about the stars, but there are some mega groups of people, like the Spanish team when they done that massive paella in a pit.
Yeah.
Then you got international air hammer Rory O'Neill. He just loves the place.
Yeah, we've actually got. If Farley had happened this year, we've got a team from Hungary booked in. And I'm also talking to a team at the moment, would you believe, from that hotbed of motocross Argentina. So it's the way it's gone, and the global reach is just crazy.
It's amazing how, like you say, it's almost at that next level, isn't it? It's almost like you're going to need a bigger boat, as the saying goes.
Yeah, the trouble is the boat's always going to be the same size. So
yeah,
you got to make do with it. But I mean, I've said it loads of times. We were maxed out there from day one, so we've really not got a whole lot bigger. Anyway, but the only way we got bigger was when we put the lineups from 40 to 60, and everybody then thought I was mad. 60 on the line? What are you talking about? You can't have 60 on the line. And I explained where they do it in the States all the time. You could have, I don't know how many there, but they certainly have a lot more than 60. But you just obviously send them off in different waves. And I think it makes for good it makes for good racing, and it makes for good qualifying, because people are, even to get in that 40th spot on that first gate, people are, they see that as their and if I was doing it, I would see that as the highlight of my weekend if I managed to start on the first gate.
Yeah, it's like you say, and it opens it up for a lot more riders as well, because I just remember that, when the entry opened, you'd literally sitting there till, like, I'd be sat there till 12 o'clock or whatever it was, and as soon as 1 second past 12, you'd press the set sign trying to get an entry.
Unfortunately, I've never done it, but I would imagine that is just the biggest pain in the butt ever going trying to. It must have been so stressful, because basically, if it screws up your whole year if you're not going to be riding. It's
an impossible job to please and satisfy everybody with the entry system. It's just like,
I made the biggest mistake, and people told me this at the time, and I didn't, and I disagreed with them, but I do agree with them now. Is I tried to please everybody, and you can't do that, and you don't need to do that. You just need to do your own thing, and if people want to fit in with it, great, and if they don't, they don't have to come.
Exactly. And it's you what I have noticed, what I generally notice, it's like in life, isn't it? The people that always moan and put your money where your mouth is, sort of thing.
Well, the people who moan,
they still turn up.
Yeah. the people that used to moan and probably still moan about Farley, or be moaning about Brexit, or moaning about the coronavirus, or moaning about having the jab. They'll find something to moan about, whatever it is. And at that time, it was just Farley. But I think I've got I know I've got a lot hardened to it, and it goes straight over there.
But the other thing as well is like the entry system is pretty much really, it's nothing to do with you, is it, Dave?
Not anymore. No, probably for the first couple of years, I used to get involved, and like I was everybody's best friend for a month before, like in January. Everybody would ring, "Oh, Dave, how you doing? Yeah, la, la, la. Oh yeah, can you get me an entry?" And like now nobody rings me, and it's brilliant, totally brilliant. I don't want to be everybody's best mate anymore.
Oh well, it's 25 past 8. So we've been on an hour and a half. On about that, my granddad's saying, I want to end the show, Dave, on one of my granddad's saying, and it was, when I had money, he said I had no friends. Sorry, when I had money, I had friends. When I had no money, I had no friends. Now I've got money again, I don't want any friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
right, thanks for setting that up, Adam. A brilliant job. Well done.
No, cheers, Dave. Thanks for starting off. And I've got when we go, you'll see it. I've got a little VT that says thanks for watching now as well. So we're trying to get more professional. Cheers, Dave.
Cheers, Adam.